Now, if we understand enlightenment to be this essential transformation that changes the game, that creates between people compassion and love and mutuality and a sense of literally participating together in the larger one, in the larger destiny, right, of an emergent, evolving humanity, an evolvent being and becoming. And we understand that this is a first-person realization, that it's verifiable in first person. You can actually feel it, touch it, taste it, experience it, that it's available through practice. Then why isn't everyone running to become enlightened? Why isn't everyone dropping everything else and saying, oh my God, this is the antidote to the pain. This is the antidote to the sense of ennui, to the sense of desperation, right? To the sense of loneliness, to the sense of brokenness. I mean, every pharmaceutical company is selling something to make you feel a little better. But they make you feel a little better. They don't change the game, right? If enlightenment, an enlightenment practice literally changes the game of the individual's first-person experience and changes the game for the better of the inner subjective space, the space between us, and can create an evolutionary we space between all peoples, then why isn't enlightenment and the rush to become enlightened, right, and the desperate practice of enlightenment the driving force for every human being's life? What's the problem? Right? If this is so great, let's put it in kind of marketing terms, right? If this is so awesome, if this product of enlightenment is so fantastic, why is no one buying it? Or why is it at least a marginal peripheral product, right, which is not, right, in the mainstream? Right? When you write a book, if you put enlightenment in the title, your sales are cut in half or worse. Right? Enlightenment is a peripheral conversation. Right? Mainstream, serious people don't talk about enlightenment. Why is that? What is there in the cultural intuition? Right? What is there in the human psyche, spirit, and the embodied human that rejects this enlightenment teaching? Again, if it's so great, if it's so transformative, if it's so heart-opening, if it so blows your mind, so why doesn't everyone want it more than anything else in the world? And that is the question we need to address to our enlightenment teaching. The enlightenment teachers suggest that the reason enlightenment is not catching on is because the ego is in the way. Because people don't want to give up their small, petty self. And I understand that, and there's some real truth to that. But at a deeper level, I want to suggest and point towards a more profound fallacy, a more profound obstacle, a more profound wall that stands between humanity in this desperately important and vitally needed teaching of enlightenment. And that is that what enlightenment seems to be saying, as most people listen in, right, to that great enlightenment conversation, is that in order to become enlightened, you have to give up yourself. I'd like to be enlightened, but what about me? Right? If I'm enlightened, me disappears. And the notion that me is going to disappear is so profoundly frightening, because if I'm not me, then who am I? And I've got nothing to hold on to. And do I exist in the fear of non-existence? Right? The fear of oblivion, of being obliterated as a non-me, as a no-self, comes online and causes the refusal of most of humanity to seriously engage enlightenment teaching. That's a big deal. Now, the enlightenment teacher says, well, that's because you're attached to your me. But if you would give it up, wow, you would have this incredible elixir, this incredible gift of enlightenment. And I want to point out and suggest that actually this is inaccurate. This is true, but it's partial. That there's actually something much deeper happening, which is the reason enlightenment teaching isn't on fire and aflame and catching on and contagious throughout the globe isn't merely because the receivers of the teaching are unable to let go of their petty, pathological, small self egos, but because the teachers of enlightenment have in some profound way misstated the teaching. That the teaching of enlightenment, the way it's presented in almost all of the world today, is actually flawed. It's actually inaccurate. And the average human being who hears the teaching senses that there's something which is in violation of essence in the teaching itself. And so what we need to do is actually find that violation, feel into it, identify it, and actually evolve the teaching, because the teaching itself is flawed. And when we evolve the teaching, what will happen, as we'll see in a few moments, we're going to actually open the door to this huge potentia, this huge evolutionary emergent possibility, which is the democratization of enlightenment. But before we get there, let's look at this. Let's see, what is there in the enlightenment teaching which is so counterintuitive, so in violation of one's essential I, one's essential identity, that it's almost in toto rejected across the board? What is it? So to answer that question, let's play with the word enlightenment for a second. Let's follow the word. What does the word enlightenment evoke? So on the one hand, it's mystical. In the Eastern traditions, we hear this talk of enlightenment, of accessing this interior face of reality, where you actually experience yourself as being one with the all. Wow. Right? That's one expression of enlightenment. This evolution of interior consciousness, this evolution of spirit and one's own self-understanding. This move from small self to true self, from separate self to true self. However, there's also a second understanding of enlightenment. And that second understanding is essential.